Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It is September 18th, 2024. The time now is 9:04 p.m. Eastern Time. It is Wednesday. I believe some people call it Hump Day. Hopefully, everybody had a good day. And if you didn't, I'm sorry. Hope you have a better day tomorrow. So, we're continuing on our journey of the alleged document coming out of the secret space program. It's called the Blue Planet Project, and it's an alleged note type document that was leaked onto the internets by a supposed scientist or scientist, stating that we have a treaty with extraterrestrials, that there's about 160 to 170 extraterrestrial life forms that are visiting the planet. The treaty that we have active is with, I think, two or three species, mostly the grays. Also, there's a master race and then there's a servant class. They're called the Regalians. And that the US government and most governments around the world are aware that these extraterrestrials are taking people. And we even have an exchange program where they leave their people behind or one of their life forms behind, and then they can take humans for experimentation, etc., etc. Now, if you haven't seen part one, part two, part three, it is best that you go watch those live streams before you listen to this one. So today we're going to be tackling the chapter that talks about alien abductions. We've talked about the races. We've talked about the locations. We've talked about the treaties. We've talked about the underground bases. There are extraterrestrial bases and human bases. The governments are collaborating with these different species and exchanging technology, spiritual knowledge, physics knowledge for experimentation on the planet and resources. So let's continue. Before I get started, here we go. I'm just going to give you give you something to look at while we're talking about alien abductions. Here we go. So this chapter is alien abductions, and it's called The Monitors of Abductions. Sorry, let me put the AC on. So it's The Monitors of Abductions. And in this chapter, they're talking about how the EBEs abduct people. And it states that in the 50s, the EBEs, which are the Greys, began taking large numbers of humans for experiments. By the 60s, the rate was speeded up and they began getting careless. By the 70s, their true colors were very obvious. Again, this is the Regalians. But the special group of the United States government still kept covering up for them. By the 80s, the government realized that it was too late and there was no defense against the Greys. So programs like media, TV, comics, commercials, books, magazines, cartoons, etc., were enacted to prepare the public for open contact with non-human alien beings. That makes sense. We got Star Wars, we got, um, Star Trek, we got Stargate SG-1, Stargate. So they've been preparing us for the last 40, 50 years. So they enacted these programs to get us acquainted with the non-human alien beings. Now, at the beginning of the 90s, 1991, these programs are continuing. So, again, this is from the 80s. Supposedly, this document notes research by the scientist is from the 80s. So, in 1991, these programs are continuing and are working well too. The Greys and the Reptoids are in league with each other, but their relationship is in a state of tension. The Greys only know the Nordics and the reptilian race as their enemy. Don't confuse the difference between the reptilian race and the reptoids or the reploids. They're three different races because they are completely different races, and we will talk about the difference between the reptilian race later. Some forces in the government want the public to be aware of what is happening, while other forces, quote unquote collaborators, want to continue making whatever deals necessary for an elite few to survive the coming conflicts. The future could bring a fascist, quote unquote, New World Order or a transformation of human consciousness, which is awareness. The struggle is now. When any active assistance is needed, prepare. We must preserve humanity on Earth. The case for alien abductions. The gray types and some Nordics, which are the ones that look like Germans for the most part, are on the top of the alien force who are bent on abducting millions of people along our history and against our will. They are subjecting us to intense medical probing and committing other invasive acts. These determined alien species are here using Earth as a gigantic breeding ground. Their accumulated data shows that we're well past the phase where mythic or academic explanations alone will suffice. Up from the strange and chaotic depths of abduction lore, which is packed into a growing research files and journals, and central themes emerging, the bottom line evidence of certain aliens' methodical, ultra intimate program with Earthlings refutes the cosmic altruism found in traditional contactee literature and counters the New Age trend of unrealistic idealism that concentrates exclusively on benevolent spiritual motivations of the presumed extraterrestrial visitations. Scientists are beginning to work on the alien front. Even the term extraterrestrial stretches the data far beyond its reasonable limits. This unknown agency exhibiting strictly cold and clinical attitudes towards human beings is unquestionably alien. It's certainly been witnessed often enough in conjunction with UFOs or UFO occupants. But even lengthy witness accounts that go into great detail about this, or that alien home planet or star cluster, fail to factor out the elements of wishful thinking. The deception and disinformation is in the field of study. The potential for misleading data attaches itself to the abduction research as readily as memories of the blinding bright lights and the quote unquote missing time recur as acknowledgments of the experiment itself. The bottom line cannot be discerned beyond the facts at hand. Researchers admit to being stuck in a very earliest stages of divisiveness and confusion more than anyone else. The adoptees themselves have to feel the pain, terrifying, literal pain that comes from being at the mercy of an alien force whose bottom line agenda largely ignores the fundamentals of human dignity and the well being. But aliens do fully comprehend and seem to manipulate the requirements of the organic reproductive creation. In this, They are much like us. We are dealing in a realm that overrides long standing cultural habits of thought and behavior. All we have to work with are the reports that have been allowed to break through the rigid veil that hides UFO information. The bottom line is, time after time, abductees recall the same sequence of events and observations. Their mechanisms of conscious control soften under hypnosis. Many come in clean, that is, with little or no previous interest in UFOs, and having never heard of or much less read the several books that are introducing the topic to the masses. This is the intruder and communion. The prescribed order of abduction events reveals an industrial sized operation with across the board demographics. People of all races, most ages, and both sexes have had the experience. It's fairly obvious the researchers maintain the manufactured hybrid babies dominate the alien agenda. So, yeah, again, we've heard the women and the men talk about they're experimenting with the reproductive system of the female and male humans. And then we hear them talk about them being introduced to their hybrid children at a later date, while the continuation of the abduction. So it's very extremely structured. They may do 1 million or a million different things, but they are really interested in one thing alone. And that's the generic sequence of events as recorded on the document. This is what they're interested in. So the aliens, this is all they care about when they're abducting people. They care about examination of the human beings. They care about harvesting the eggs of the women and the sperm of the men. Uh, they always show a baby. They present, baby presentations only for females, rarely for male. So usually I heard several stories when it comes to this. The majority of people that see their hybrid child after they've been abducted over the years are usually females. But I've heard of men that have had this experience, and they're introduced, the children are introduced to the males as well. Uh, their other interests, the aliens' other interests are the machine examinations, media presentations of idyllic environments. The abduction sequence is not exact in every instance, but enough leading indicators must be presented to qualify the case as one deserving further investigation. They capture, they examine, and then it goes on to state that there's a conference, there's tours, otherworldly journeys, theophany, which is the delivery of some sort of quasi-religious message or experience, which is true. I've had many different experiences where actually only one introduced a religious aspect. And this one being was different than the other beings that I saw, these particular grays. So I saw grays, and then I saw other ones that were not grays, that they didn't have the big heads, but they were small. And one of them showed me that they believe in a type of system like the Buddhist system. And they showed me, the statue, which was similar to Buddha's when he was doing his fasting for 5 years. And it had the alien language on it. And it was an alien sitting in the throne, seated in meditation. And then there was another group that did not look like the grays, kind of, but they didn't have the big heads, and they were taller. They seemed more humanoid than the grays that we talk about. They were showing me the physics of the universe. They showed me how, the atoms go in and out of space, and how they can, with their mind, they can travel through time, or they can astral project, or they can go places just by doing the spiritual stuff. So what they're saying is that they take people on journeys, to other worlds. Uh, they deliver, some sort of religious message or experience, and then they're returned, and then there's the aftermath of the abduction or the, I guess, contact. This hasn't happened in that many cases, but still deserves particular mention at the moment. A significant number of abductees tend to retain special, almost spiritual feelings about their experiences, even if they were treated roughly or hurt. Also, recent investigation efforts are hinting that various sources in the intelligence community exhibit an odd preoccupation with the religious angle. These sources claim they can furnish an inside track to greater levels of truth about the UFO phenomenon, and some investigators consider them trustworthy. Well, some of the individuals in the military, again, are Luciferians. So, they're dealing with another element that it's really not extraterrestrial. It's two different things that may seem like the same thing. Because again, I've seen the spiritual element before I saw the extraterrestrials, right? I was dealing in the spiritual world, and, again, angels, demons, entities, um, dead people. And then the alien stuff is a totally different thing. They don't come through, they don't have the same, okay, how can I explain this? They don't have the same energy. There's a frequency when it comes to the spiritual realm that is totally different from technology of the aliens or the extraterrestrials and the abilities of the extraterrestrials. They're two different things. They don't have the same frequency, they don't have the same vibration, and that's how I can tell the difference between the both. So researchers feel they're getting closer to having more definitive answers about abductions. Let me go back because I just skipped one part. So a significant number of abductees tend to retain special, almost spiritual feelings about their experiences, even if they were treated roughly or hurt. Also, recent investigation efforts are hinting that various sources in the intelligence community exhibit an odd preoccupation with the religious angle. Again, they're Luciferians, Satanists. These sources claim they can furnish an inside track to greater levels of truth about the UFO phenomenon, and some investigators consider them trustworthy. They are inexplicably or inexplicable and inexplicably fascinated with religious sides of things. As we should be, though. We should be interested and fascinated with religious things or spiritual things because it's all part of the whole universal experience. For some nasty alien races, religion means the better way of mass manipulation, psychological, sociological control that they can get, and it works very well. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that some scientists, they don't give the human spirit or the spirituality of humanity too much credit. Uh, if you speak to the NDEs, again, people that have left their bodies and died for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and come back, they go somewhere that has nothing to do with aliens. It's a spiritual place. The majority go to heaven. Some go to another place that's lower vibration that is called, many people call hell. Some say they go to other multiverse areas, other realms, but it's not the same as the extraterrestrial experience. And I'm speaking from my experience. So religion means the better way of mass manipulation, psychologic and sociologic control that they can get, and it works well. Researchers feel they are getting closer to having more definitive answers about abductions. A body of evidence that once emphasized matching details, lie detection, and the relative psychological or the psychology of witnesses is giving way to one yardstick that never fails to command scientific respect. Similarities in form and content are important to know, but ultimately, answers demand exterior evidence to bridge the gap between report and reality. After a close encounter of a second kind, We have documented the physical and the chemical evidence, such as soil samples, and performed full analysis on these samples. The affected soil was packed in hard, desiccated chunks. To duplicate the effects, the analyst had to heat the soil to 800 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 hours. This is one of a kind of physical evidence. You have body scars and other medical trauma left in the wake of alien examinations, and perhaps the most incontrovertible evidence we have found available. But other developments had more fully to the case for alien reality. One example is an examination of stained clothing retrieved from the abductee just after her experience. The clothing awaits spectrographic analysis. The results of this analysis can tell us what kind of residual stains can appear. This again is an additional physical evidence. If large numbers of doctors in conventional gynecological practice were to be exposed to abduction data, a whole new subspecialty would be inevitable. Many women abductees indicate that the aliens tampered with their reproductive organs, if not actually committing a form of technological rape. Okay, yes, this is correct, but in the spiritual realm, you have the same thing happening when you're dealing with witchcraft, voodoo, and Satanist. They do the same thing, uh, eh, but they do it in a ritualistic way, where they do a type of voodoo surgery. So I see the similarities between the alien abductions and the Luciferians. Some women abductees are plagued with stark memories of strange, wispy-haired offspring, whose presence sometimes evokes revulsion and the paradoxical feeling, "That's my child." Additionally, we have to talk about the disappearing pregnancies. Abductees as far removed from one another as Brazil to New Hampshire tell nearly identical stories of pregnancies that suddenly appear and disappear, and later reveal memories of repeated meetings with small, not quite human infants that they are asked to hold or touch. One theory holds that the aliens are attempting to learn by proxy the skills of nurturing to aid in the replenishment of their race. I think it's purely physiological. In some way, we don't understand the babies aided and or helped by the physical touch. One of the abductees said she felt like a human battery charger. Elaborate rituals that present babies to parents and attempt to institute some sort of ongoing parent-to-child relationships have been documented, along with descriptions of high-tech nurseries and what looks like unusual incubation apparatuses. The realm of UFOs is a place where the paradox is the norm. It's assumed the aliens use technology that far outpaces what we have on Earth. Yet some of their methods seem low-tech by comparison. According to some data collected about abductions, the aliens, like humans, have to confront the world of error in their experiments. For many years, the world of error appeared primarily as a crash saucer, recovered pieces, and occupants. What we're finding in the abduction phenomenon is that the factor of error is quite different. What it boils down to is someone sneezing out something or an odd metallic object in one's body that no one can make heads nor tails of. Again, this would be probably the microchips that the aliens use. Several people have in fact sneezed out objects, which may be alien implants, though so far most of the objects have been lost or thrown away, but a few implants were recovered, which will be discussed later in the document. The unfolding drama of abduction wouldn't be complete without a token of big brother government paranoia. Even early high tech includes sophisticated mind control techniques and the capabilities to project sights and sounds at a distance. Perhaps not probable, but it's possible that what most researchers considered an alien orchestrated abduction sequence is actually a carefully scripted, electronically induced perception. That means big news to Earth. If certain areas of the human brain can be remotely stimulated, then it is possible to develop a technology that can broadcast over large territories, literally saturating the area with a flood of symbols. Such a device would be a major tool or social change. He's talking about this back then, but we already have this type of device, electromagnetic weapons or directed energy weapons. Voice to skull, uh, particle beam weapons. You have all the I forgot the name. It's not lidar technology. It's the one that the cops use now, where it sends high frequency noises and it like it disrupts protesters. So we have different type of weapons. The buzz that human witnesses often hear could be produced by microwave radiation, known to be in the arsenals of governments' dark programs. A mind control hypothesis could also explain the relative lack of physical evidence through only an irrational stretch of the imagination, which might link mind control techniques with what evidence has been documented, i.e., physical traces, unusual metal garments, and scarring. Worth noting, however, is the fact that some researchers pursuing this trail of investigation have been summarily and sometimes harshly thrown off. Sporadic accounts of humans assisting the abductions add a chilling note. What we inevitably face, even with the growing evidence, is a mountain of unanswered questions. If and when the mainstream quits denying the presence of UFOs, a well supported program of tactical research may ensue. Until then, abduction remains a mystery and the abductees the outsiders, whose physical and emotional well being hinges on the solution. The data we have about abductions has derived by conversations with the abductees. This is during the abduction process. All abductees were scanned with a very sensitive and powerful mental probe, which retrieves all personal and private data, which is name, address, age, profession, psychological pattern, etc. And this is done to the abductees and was readily available to the aliens for their data bank. Just a few of these names and addresses go to our government per the alien government agreement. During the process of abduction, a directional subliminal mental command kept away any other non-interesting witnesses around the area of the alien craft. After an abduction occurs, and if we can maintain synchronicity of finding the abductees within 12 to 24 hours after the abduction, which is really not easy, we can recommend, in the case of a female abduction, a complete gynecological procedure common to abductions. In succeeding generations of family exposure to recurrent abductions, we are observing areas of the human body that are consistently and quite visibly affected. This evidence is related to the skin and muscles. During their experiences, many abductees and other witnesses will feel tingling, prickling, or static electric shock type of sensation over the skin, which is followed by paralysis of the entire body, with the exception of an abductee's heart and lungs, where minor or no effects may be found. Scars. The body marks may remain permanently or become transitory in nature. over a short duration and may heal or disappear altogether. In dealing with the skin, we find the following evidence. 1. A thin, straight hairline cut, linear, and about 1 to 3 inches in length. 2. A circular or scoop-like depression, about 1/8 to 3/4 of an inch in diameter and may be as much as 1/4 of an inch deep. Sometimes the abductees get rashes, so the rashes are seen on the body, most appearing on the upper thorax, which is the chest area, and lower extremities, which is the thighs and the legs. Many are geometrical in shape, triangular or circular. Other rashes, which are similar to chronic inflammation, such as localized psoriasis, may be found on other parts of the body. First and second degree burns have been sustained in a number of cases, and in some cases, questionable tumors have been noticed just beneath the skin. The most common areas examined by the aliens and other medically determined patterns of consistency: the nasal cavity, the ears, they examine the eyes, they examine the genitalia, and the umbilical cord or the umbilical region on females only. These are areas that appear to be the physical areas of greatest interest to the abducting aliens. Many abductees have described a thin probe with a tiny ball on its end being inserted into each nostril, usually on the right side. The abductees are able to hear a crushing type sound that the bone in this area is apparently being penetrated. We believe this is when they insert the device for tracking and communicating with the abductee in the future. Many abductees will have nosebleeds following the examinations. Hold on, guys. So, as a precautionary note, we recommend that known or suspected abductees who are parents watch their children for any evidence of recurrent nosebleeds that can be explained. I recommend immediately taking the child to a pediatrician to discover the nature of the nosebleeds. And here's a diagram, obviously a woman. Excuse me. A diagram of a female area examined. So these are the areas that the extraterrestrial usually examine on women when they abduct them. They have needles marks on the roof of the mouth, which usually turns out to be an implant, a needle mark on the navel, unexplained infections in the woman's area. Above the woman's area, upon examination by a doctor, reveals evidence of bearing more children than the female is aware of. And then in the thigh area, scoop marks in the skin. They show needle marks in the back of the head, most likely an implant, unexplained gashes or slices on the back of the shoulder, triangular rashes or bruises on the arm. And then note, these are just a few of the locations, shapes, and types of marks left by the abduction. Many researchers believe that the alien technology is being used to insert an implant. We talk about implants in other parts of this document. They insert an implant into this area for future tracking of the individual. It is interesting to note that many of the individuals subjected to nasal probing now have a future history of chronic sinusitis. Documented evidence has also shown that some abductees have been probed in their eyes and ears with a similar instrument. With eyes being involved, abductees may experience temporary blindness, blurred vision, swollen, watery, and painful eyes, acute conjunctivitis, red and irritated, inflamed eyes, that is called pink eye in lay terms. There's also some questionable history of these individuals developing cataracts. Scars have been observed on the calf, including just over the tibia or the shin bone, the thigh, the hip, the shoulder, the knee, the spinal column, and on the right sides of the back and forehead. Biological specimens, samples usually taken from the abductees or the witnesses, are as follows. Evidence indicates that aliens have taken blood, ova from females, and sperm from males, and tissue scrapings from their subjects' ears, eyes, noses, calves, thighs, and hips. When the abductees and or witnesses are asleep or possibly under some form of alien anesthetic. There is also some circumstantial evidence to suggest that the specimens might have been taken from the following: saliva, aqueovistrios, whatever that is, eye fluids, cerebrospinal fluid. They take urine, stool, air, hair, and nails. We feel that all the abductees are given some type of preparation prior to the examination. Some witnesses have reported receiving oral liquid, medication, others an application of a liquid solution similar to a pre-operative prep over various parts of their bodies. Some report a tranquilizing effect and telepathically transmitted from the active alien examiner and or application of an instrument to the head, which renders deep relaxation or unconsciousness. Next, we will outline what we think are the three stages of examinations which abductees are subjected to through some type of pre-operative anesthesia. First stage, abductees are subjected to some type of twilight sleep state where they are in indefinite trance or daze. This twilight sleep state could be induced by several different things, from the liquid application over the body, a specific conscious suggestion by the aliens using some form of hormones or enzymes to stimulate a neurochemical response, or some type of yet unknown technology. One odd note in connection with this stage that prompts a lot of questions is, why is it that so few abductees remember removing their clothes? Because during this process of the light sleep state, they receive a subliminal command to erase the more traumatic moments of the abduction. Well, okay, so speaking of this, right? So they're doing all this experimentation, right? And they're being, per this scientist he has a point of view on this because he's an insider. He's saying that they have an agenda. Obviously, the agenda is to replenish their population, right? But if they're willing to erase the memory, well, actually, no, you're right. Because if they're erasing the memory, is to try to prevent the person from becoming psychotic, right? Because it's a trauma, like being abused sexually or physically, or any type of traumatic abuse that's criminal. They erase them, or they try to remace or suppress the memory because they never erase it. Because many of these abductees, they have a moments of recall, like flashbacks. So they never get rid of the memory. They just suppress the memory. So they erase the more traumatic moments of the abduction. Some commands are so strong that just a few of the abductees are able to remember clearly their experiences, even when placed under hypnosis to remember. The second stage is the procedures, which is physical examinations that take place, such as probing, insertion, exploration of the body, taking of biopsies, blood or skin samples. During this phase, the abductees may be semi-conscious as the procedures are carried out. Some actually experience pain. Despite objections, the aliens appear to be indifferent. That's true. I saw a particular group of alien that their energy that was emanating from them was indifference. But they weren't These are not the guys, the ones that I saw are not the same guys that are here doing the work, not the little guys. These are other taller aliens. They were indifferent. Um, so, despite the objections, the aliens appear to be indifferent to their victims' pain and suffering. On the other hand, some abductees at this stage are given heavier sedation to quiet their fears and apprehension and do not recall any pain with these procedures. The third stage is the post operative. Afterwards, the abductees and or other witnesses say their bodies feel sore or exhausted, as if having been involved in a strenuous activity. Some explain that it feels they've been tossed around or hit by a Mack truck. Oh, Lord. You aliens, you better not abduct me. I'm saying, don't abduct me. I'm sorry, guys. It's not funny, but it's funny. If I tell you, the experiences. This is similar to the known effects of Curare, a drug originating in South America that induces therapeutic muscular paralysis. There are specific blood enzyme studies that, if performed within 12 to 24 hours of exposure, can be used to detect the abnormalities of muscular activity. Several documented physical traces of the abductee experience correlate fairly well with some of our recognized medical procedures. Most outstanding is one called laparoscopy, which is a cylindrical tube like instrument with special optic attachments that are placed through a female's umbilical region for exploration of the female organs. Oof, that probably hurts. With this particular instrument, a physician is able to observe all female organs to determine if any abnormalities are present, as well as obtain ova eggs from the ovaries. Most women abductees have felt they were being blown up inside, feeling tremendous pressure in the lower abdomen and discomfort in the vagina area. During the laparoscopy procedure, approximately 2 liters of carbon dioxide is instilled into the oof, what? 2 liters of carbon dioxide up in my area. Oof. This causes distensation or distension of the abdomen, thus allowing better visibility of female organs. A few women may have residual scarring from the long needle like instruments, which are placed through the umbilical area. Then there's the pregnancy. In correlation with the laparoscopy procedure is a new treatment for infertility called gamete or intrafallopian transfer, which is called the gift, which treats infertility by placing sperm and poocytes directly into the infertile woman's fallopian tubes for in vivo fertilization. In contrast with in vitro fertilization, the IVF, gift facilities are natural physiological processes to achieve pregnancy. Male abductees report having a tube like device attached to their penis, which causes ejaculation for sperm sampling. This is highly uncomfortable to the individual. Most have said they sustain transitory small lesions that disappear shortly afterwards. Others claim to have experienced direct sexual intercourse. Okay, this is another thing. Others claim to have experienced direct sexual intercourse with an alien hybrid female, ostensibly for the purpose of sperm retrieval as well. This is true. I've heard stories, when you've seen them, I'm sure, on Ancient Aliens or something like that, where some of these guys are abducted and they begin to have a relationship with a hybrid alien. They come, first I guess they're abducted, and then after it's a consensual thing where the hybrid female comes to see them, and then they have intercourse during the night or whatever, and then I think a couple of those cases, the male has been able to see their child, the hybrid child. But you've heard these stories on these channels, of abductees. But About 50% of the stories are voluntary. It's almost like it becomes voluntary after that. These events have resulted in pregnancies. Excuse me, I skipped the whole part there. Sorry. Other claims have experienced direct sexual intercourse with the alien hybrid female, ostensibly for the purpose of sperm retrieval as well. A substantial amount of evidence has been accumulated that female abductees undergo genealogical insemination. These events have resulted in pregnancies, most documented by a positive pregnancy test. In cases of spotting of bleeding with these pregnancies, the physician normally performs a pelvic ultrasound scan. The ultrasound test to check pregnancy within the uterus, to rule out any threatened miscarriage or missed abortion, which is failure of the pregnancy to grow. The test can detect a pregnancy as early as 5 weeks. Thus, pregnancy can be confirmed with two different gynecological tests. It should be noted that the government uses the abductees' normal doctors to collect most of the above following data without the patient knowing anything, and in most cases, the doctors knowing very little and threatened that if they ever talk, they will have the licenses revoked permanently. You saw this also in the mind control programs and the MK Ultra programs, where doctors were in hospitals that were involved with the CIA, and they were testing patients that were going in there for one particular procedure and then having all these horrible things done to them while being medicated on government advanced medication, um, pharmacology. It's like, I'm wondering if the government learned this from the extraterrestrials. I'm starting to think this. But then again, the Nazis used to do this too. But then again, the Nazis were opening wormholes and communicating with people, things from other realms, opening dimensions, you know, getting information from, you know, the dead, demons, crazy stuff. All this, like, it's just weird that this all sounds the same. The pregnancy can be confirmed with two different tests. It should be noted that the government uses the abductees' normal doctors to collect most of the above and following the data without the patient knowing anything. And in most cases, the doctors knowing very little and threatened that if they ever talk, they will have their licenses revoked permanently. In cases we have seen, this is followed up by a subsequent alien abduction, usually when the pregnancy is approximately 8 to 10 weeks long. During this time, there is a retrieval or a removal of the pregnancy by the aliens. The female may or may not experience spotting or bleeding during this time. What's baffling is how such a pregnancy can be removed intact without causing death or injury to the extracted embryo by the aliens. Well, they have advanced technology, so they have laser technology. If you're talking about, 50, 40 years ago, laser technology, they just remove it from the wound and then they seal it with the same laser. In order for a particular to continue, several methods would have to be available immediately to sustain life in the extracted embryo. We suspect that some type of simulated intrauterine growth incubator is used to maintain the pregnancy. So kind of like the pouch that we saw a few years back with the lamb being grown in that artificial pouch. It would probably be something like that, or a container. You've seen it in the movies. It's probably a replica of the real thing. We suspect that some type of simulated intrauterine growth incubator is used to maintain the pregnancy, or perhaps an alien hybrid female is used, whose role is to act as a surrogate type mother. Techniques for reimplanting the embryo are very difficult for our medical technologies of today. Several alternative combinations can be speculated with the artificial insemination of female abductees. A. Alien sperm plus female eggs. B. male sperm plus female eggs. In this case, the aliens choose a special type of male. C, male hybrid sperm, combination of both A and B plus female eggs. No, female human eggs are apparently needed in all cases. Well, if they don't have, if these regilians don't have, some of them don't have, well, it depends on what the master race, the servant race, and the other race. One of them doesn't have genitals, so they don't have a reproductive system, and they don't have an intestinal system. Some of the others do have genitals and have an intestinal system, but they're probably infertile. Is probably what's going on here because they worship technology. They probably killed them, their reproductive system in the process. The hybridization. They claim that the RHO blood is proof of the hybridization. Any of you have RHO? Any of you? Any of you? And our own science tends to bear out their claim. We know that this group of aliens has a tendency to lie. Since this is a quote unquote device referred to above, is of their invention, they are probably able to manipulate it just like Hollywood technicians manipulate equipment to produce the special effects or trick hologram photography. Our genetic code is under siege, and focusing on the genealogical and reproductive procedures that have been performed on abductees, we have to come to firmly believe there is some type of ongoing genetic manipulation that is occurring within various family generations. Well, humans are now doing the genetic manipulation. Obviously, hold on. So we are now humans themselves nowadays are we're manipulating our own DNA now. We're genetically engineering, we're doing all crazy stuff. Unless those doctors and those scientists are aliens. Aliens. All right, so they're manipulating generations. For the purposes of clarification, it is essential for us to use some medical terminology to explain specific facts. The way genetic manipulation lies within the deoxyribon nucleic acid, DNA. So it's in the DNA molecules of the human gene cells. These genes control the reproduction and day-to-day functions of all cells. It has been estimated that there are probably 30,000 to 400,000 essential genes in the human cells, assembled in lengthy linear arrays that together with certain proteins form rod-shaped structures known as the chromosomes. The chromosomes from certain individuals, through certain altering techniques, form a customary arrangement of standardized format known as the karyotype. We believe it is the manipulations of the genetic codes on the karyotype of individual chromosomes that the aliens are researching, specifically looking for the mutation patterns. Mutation patterns would allow them to rearrange the genetic coding on a certain low-C lin genetic terminology. The specific site of the gene is in the chromosome. In this manner, they would be able to experiment with a multitude of the low C in the various chromosomes, thus bringing about the new genotype individuals in preceding generations. So we got hybrids amongst us, folks. If this is legit, we got about, let me see, this started what? In the 50s, 60s, 70s. So anybody born in the 70s I mean, probably before that. But let's just say in the 70s, a generation from the 70s on, we probably got some hybrids up in here. We got some hybrids up in here. No wonder we got so many crazy people out here doing some crazy stuff. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so perhaps each succeeding generation of the families is subjected to a different comparable type of experimentation by the aliens. It is interesting to note just where the residual scars are located on the abductee bodies. Now, I would like to pose a new interpretation of the evidence found in our ongoing research of abductees. Many scars are found over the shin bone and the hip bone, which are common areas for obtaining bone marrow samples or aspirations. Simply speaking, bone marrow produces the red blood cells in our bodies, and it is significant, in our opinion, that it is through a human's bone marrow and blood that it is possible to study their individual chromosomal pattern. The timing of the abductees' first experiences also correlates with the hypothesis. The marrow of essentially all the bones in the human skeletal structure produces red blood cells until a person is 5 to 6 years old. The marrow of the long bones, except for the proximal portions of the humor, which is the upper arm bones, and the tibia, becomes quite fatty and produces no more red blood cells after the age of 20. Beyond that age, most red blood cells are produced in the marrow of such areas as the vertebrae, the spinal column, and the chest bone, the ribs, and the hip bone. And as we get older, these bones become less productive. Most initial abduction experiences occur when the abductee is between the ages of 5 and 20 years old. Based on these observations, we are probably dealing with two very important phases of an abductee's life as it relates to this apparent alien exploitation. Pre-adolescent and teenage phase. Initial blood samples, bone marrow aspirations, and tissue samples are taken between ages 5 and 20 years old, or 20 years of age. This would be the time frame for specific and early genetic studies on the chromosomes of the abductees as a follow-up from another generation, with studies performed to see if a certain pattern is consistent with a particular family. During this time, some type of implants are inserted so that the individual can be followed and found at some future date, after further analysis of samples have been obtained by the alien researcher. Some of these individuals may be abducted again, possibly due to the failed implant or for reconfirmation on the certain genetic information. The adult phase. The pattern we are seeing at the present seems to reveal abductees are undergoing some form of ongoing genetic exploitation, implementation, or manipulation, such as genetic coding. This is where we see the consistent or the most consistent, most documented procedures of the abduction phenomenon, such as artificial insemination techniques, which are continued on some abductees throughout their reproductive years. Perhaps in their own way, if you believe the quote-unquote space brother theory, the alien scientists are meticulously, methodically, and clinically restructuring the human race through procedures of genetic manipulations so that we will be designed better for resolving our own problems rather than requiring their more direct intervention into our petty world affairs. Maybe there is a double-blind study on the human race ongoing, for reasons known only to the aliens who are running the program. Or consider the possibility of this being an alien scientific research mission, where studies are being performed on technologically less advanced planets. I agree with that one. If they're scientists, I mean, they're scientists. Humans do the same thing. We do this to animals and lower. I mean, we do it to our own, and we're horrible. MK Ultra, prime example. Eugenics programs from the early 1900s all the way till now. We're still doing it in the United States. So, shit, if we do it to ourselves and to the animals, and we treat the animals just as bad as we treat humans, of course the aliens probably doing the same thing. I mean, hello. So all of this is pure speculation and wide open to other theories or hypotheses. A new eugenics movement has recently sprung up in Southern California. Eugenics is the science dealing with improvement by control of human mating of the hereditary qualities of race or breed. Again, this is what the Rockefellers were doing. The Carnegie. Who else? I mean, all the families were engaging in what was called in the early 1800s, 1900s. It was called hygiene health. Was it hygiene? Uh, uh, Genetic hygiene. That's what they called it. Genetic hygiene. Uh, the new eugenics movement has recently sprung in California. These issues that bear on the eugenics movement can be argued both for pro and con. And that's what CRISPR-Cas9 is, right? Is part of the eugenics program. However, we feel that overall it is a very emotional issue, which with implications that could correlate with the alien agenda and either certain problems that could very well rival our nation's controversial abortion decisions. The techniques of selective breeding, which seem to be utilized by the aliens, are beginning to appear in our own culture. That's not true. Okay, the aliens, unless the aliens have been doing this to us for 100,000 years since, you know, Homo sapien or the previous before the Homo sapien, um, our own cultures over the last 10,000 years have had this thing about the bloodlines, right? That's where we get the blue bloods and the noble blood and the royalty blood. So unless we're talking about they've been doing this since the beginning of our existence on earth, we as humans we've had this philosophy that the noble blood is better than the common blood, basically. And the mixing of blood, the mixing of families. And even till today, you have many royalty, supposedly, that still believes in the purity of their line. You know, every culture has this. It's not only the European culture, it's not only, you know, America's Central South American cultures from the ancients had this particular belief system. The African cultures had this belief system. The Asian, Chinese cultures have this belief system. The Middle Eastern cultures, same thing. They always want to breed out the genes, right? For their race, their people take over the particular areas to dominate. So the techniques of selective breeding, which seem to be utilized by the aliens, are beginning to appear in our culture. For example, Dr. Robert Graham, who founded an organization called the Respiratory of the Germinal Choice, has come under heavy attack by his adversaries. Essentially, Dr. Graham's program allows women to shop in his respiratory sperm bank for a specific type of donor that they can retain for later use in artificial insemination procedures. Yeah, that's happening on a regular basis now. You can pick your donors, eye colors, race, skin color. It's regular now. It's a regular thing now. In other words, a woman could select the sperm of a Nobel Prize winner, an astrophysicist, or an extraordinary professional such as an astronaut, physician, or mathematician. It appears that this organization is out to create a new generation of super intelligent children who will be eventually adults. through the techniques of selective artificial insemination. The socioeconomic, political, psychological, and theological implications of this controversial new technique, whether put to use by aliens or humans, go beyond the scope of this document. Exactly what are these implications, you might ask? Only time will tell. The metagene factor. The metagene is a biological variant lying dormant in select members of the human race until an instant of extraordinary physical and emotional overstress activates it. That's an energochemical in response to adverse stimuli. A chromosomal combustion takes place as the metagene takes the source of biostress, be it chemical, radioactive activity, or whatever, and turns the potential energo response into a catalyst for genetic change. The main focus of the catalyst power is a gland in the middle of the human brain called the pineal gland, and the nutrient for increasing the pineal's action is the adrenaline. The metagene factor gives the ability of psionic power. I got to look up that word, psionic. The main interest of the aliens, especially the Greys, is to understand and control the metagene for their own race. They try to do this using biological experiments to make hybrids from both humans and aliens. They believe perhaps the men from the planet Earth are the deadliest creatures in the universe, because only on Earth people are apparently capable of generating the metagene factor, which means natural psionics ability, which is real power. The principal races in the universe are psychologically the same. The pure cold logic is a normal order to most important races. Basic sameness makes for predictability and security. The enemy one knows are the ones you can guard against. This is not the case with mankind. I wonder if it's our spirituality that's the most threatening thing about this whole thing. While most are uniformly human, some, many more apparently, than anyone had dreamed possess a latent tendency towards superhumanity, natural psionic abilities, psionic abilities, that in itself could prove dangerous for any idea of alien domination on Earth. But couple of mankind's inherent belligerence with the fact of the metagene effects, each human is unique and Earth becomes a spawning ground for an unpredictable super race if we have the chance. True, if we really figure out how to get over our problems and learn to manifest at will, yeah, we would be extremely deadly superhumans. Others have already demonstrated an awareness of man's potential along with human history. The Nordics treat. This is because the aliens are here to try to control Earthlings before we dominate them, and they want our most important secret, the metagene factor, which is the aliens' only hope. Abduction by Greys. There is a large number of Grey abductees living all over the world. Most are either unaware or just partially aware of their involvement with the aliens. Grey abductees seem to be taken for a large variety of reasons. Some apparently have nothing to do with the person, him or herself. They might have been manipulated to various degrees for no other reason than that they were with a person scheduled to be abducted. Others have been abducted apparently only once or very rarely compared to throughout life. As with Nordic contactees, it would seem that the genetics and artificial racial background plays a part in their selection processes. People have been abducted by Greys for a long time. This contact can exist during generations in the same family. And even cases of the abductee having contacts with the same entity during the process of past lives. Now we get into reincarnation, it seems. All this means that there may be a clear indication that a large percentage of the human race could very well be a sleeping army and were picked up only once or twice and implanted, but not generally bothered or contacted throughout their lives. This suggests that these people are on hold for something, or that they are simply walking transmitters of some kind of information, basically bioenergolosmic psycho waves back to the aliens. Most gray abductees are first taken as children, and many adult abductees know or feel their children are being abducted. It would seem that most children who appear to be involved don't want to consider the possibility of actual abduction or think about it at all. It would also seem that the best policy with most children is to leave it at that, not push them to remember. Hypnotic regression, especially, is considered too much to ask of a child. Even adults actually should not take light actually should not take lightly the decision to have themselves hypnotically regressed to recall abduction experiences. Children and adults alike, if they are involved, will tell you of their weird dreams and experiences even when they don't believe there is anything going on. Women are frequently abducted largely for reproductive purposes or reproduction purposes, though some never experience that kind of interaction. Some of those who are involved in that part of it report that they're earthbound human children that live with aliens, which have several different reactions to the situation. Some are perfectly happy with the program as it is. Many don't express any opinion about it at all because they don't see it as being anything they can do something about. Some are repulsed by the children and by their own involvement with them. Some have felt that the children we produce will be used against us. Some of the weapons and aircraft training that abductees are involved in is actually done by the abductee for the sake of the unborn child. Training the mother as received is sought to be transferred physically to the unborn child. Things along this line are part of what might inspire some abductees to fear their half-breed children. Others love their half-breed children as they would any other. Many who feel this way would like to recover their children and bring them back to Earth, where they would have a better life than with the aliens. Many also feel that the children are better off where they are, but would certainly like more open contact with them, more interaction with their children. Aspects of the biofield differential. The biophysical field of the gray entities is in opposition to the field of human body. Yes. Yes. Just like demons, you can feel it. The reaction produced by the interface of the two fields can produce a sensation referred to body terror. It's because they're vibrating on a different frequency. Body terror by the abductee Whitley Strieber. A human may or may not experience this reaction, depending on their ability to develop a mental block to the reaction created by the field differential. On occasions, the same possible reaction with some Nordics is experienced. The fields emitted by the Greys parallel to the type of field emitted by much of their technology. The Greys use technology to amplify the effect of their biofields on the humans. It allows them greater control over the ordinary humans, who may react to the field differential with the human emotion of fear, using internally generated tones to interfere with some kinds of manipulations. Anyone can produce high-pitched tones in his or her own head. It would render the manipulative technology inert. Just maintain the tone during the presence of the Greys, and anyone is capable of arguing with them. A generation of the tone is an important part of the human defense programming against intruders. Awareness parameters for tone maintenance. Since the technology used to manipulate humans encourages relative paralysis of conscience subconscious functions. Maintenance of tone interference or other mental techniques must be handled by a form of bridging or cooperation between the conscious and subconscious awareness. Effective use of counteracting techniques depends on an increasing awareness of both states. Something just walked in the room. You guys, oh, you Satanists, I love you. You guys be sending things over here. I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to talk about this. This is very interesting. Come on. I only got like 45 people watching this. Why you guys keep on sending shit over here, man? Only like 6 cats are watching it. Oh, maybe all 6 of you are Satanists. Oh my god, this is hilarious. Sorry guys, something walked in the room that's really heavy and dark and large, and it's behind me, and it's trying to stop me from continuing the reading, the reading of this document. It's hilarious when they do this. And by the way, they try to do this every day. It's really funny. Okay, so where was I? Oh my god, I'm taking your life force. I'm taking your life force. Okay, hold on. So they're talking about the tones. So awareness parameters for tone maintenance. Since the technology used to manipulate humans encourages relative paralysis of the conscious functions, maintenance of the tone interference or other mental techniques must be handled by a form of bridging or cooperation between the conscious and subconscious awareness. Effective use of countering or counteracting techniques depends on an increasing awareness of both states. The subconscious areas are where all memories are preserved and all experience their relative to abduction is subject to blocks placed there by both the abductee as a program response to a function which the aliens have connected with the survival impulse or the aliens. Lucid dreaming indicates a closing of the gap between awareness of both mental areas. Being able to interact with the Greys on their own turf, so to speak, is a threat to the alien manipulation and control. I agree with that. Uh, Effects of multiple level alien manipulation. You know what's funny? When they said that interacting with them on their own turf is a threat to them. Every time that I've ever been in an area, for the exception of I think 1 or 2 times, every time I've been in an area where there's extraterrestrial, meaning when I go to sleep and I leave my body, I always know if I'm supposed to be in that location or not. Automatically, the spirit knows. So that's interesting that they're saying that. Effects of multiple level alien manipulation. The most interesting aspect of the alien control and manipulation is that the technology they use allows the separate and distinct manipulation of both gross and the finer densities that comprise the physicality of the human body. They have the ability to place a human on a table, put him or her into a delta sleep state, shock him or her with a static charge, separate his or her finer bodies, and manipulate them at will. Manipulation of finer areas that involve the formative forces of the physical body have a tremendous effect or effects at the physical level. They also have the ability to withdraw experience and memory from a human and place that experience and memory into another body or container. I will repeat this again. They also have the ability to withdraw experience and memory from a human and place that experience and memory into another body or container, whether the container is a natural or synthetic one. So a synthetic biology humanoid robot. Manipulations of these type have effects on the ability to have one's consciousness leave the body, emotional response patterns and programming, ability to deal with psychic blocks, and a host of other parameters. To begin to counteract this, work must be done by the individual to work on expansion of awareness. Connections must be developed between the conscious self and the second self, which may be the self that is projected astrally. After a while, the conscious maintenance of the connection begins to combine both conscious memories and memories which lie deeper. Work on self hypnosis and regression techniques with a qualified individual. These techniques will aid in the process of developing more awareness and control. I would say be very careful with hypnosis because if you're a person that's not open, your chakras are not open, your pineal gland is not open, you will bring in insanity into your life because your mind would not be able to handle the ability to see realms and things that you probably never saw before. So, hypnosis, if you're ready for it, if you don't know anything about it and you don't know the different aftermath situations, then don't deal in it, is what I would say. Okay, these techniques will aid in the process of developing more awareness and control. Constant experimentation while in alien presence must be done by the abductee, who must make an effort to note results of various mental manipulations on the alien control efforts. Some major indicators of alien interaction and possible hidden involvement. This is what people abductees experience: missing time, waking up during the night or in the morning with unusual body sensations or bodily sensations, such as tingling, numbness, dizziness, heaviness, paralysis. Any of these are often accompanied by disorientation. They have nightmares or vivid dreams of aliens and or other technology. They have sleeping disorders or sleep disorders, also waking up at specific times. This also, by the way, this also happens when you're dealing with the spiritual realm. It's the same thing. Some people have a thing like I wake up in the witching hour because people are doing witching things and sending things. So it's kind of like the same thing. Physical marks or evidence or bodily manipulation, repeated sightings of alien craft, clear remembrance of alien contact and interaction, healing or inexplicable improvement in your body or physical condition, reactions of fear, anxiety, or unusual bodily sensations upon viewing visual images of aliens or other technology or their technology, feelings of having had a communication, unexplained behavior totally inconsistent with previous patterns. Any or all of the above are indicators, or of the above indicators may appear in combination with other ones. Many of the indicators could also signal a physical problem requiring medical attention. Clinical psychologists have reported that a significant number of people have been helped by their interaction with alien species. Mostly through alien physical manipulation that resolves a physical condition. Bioconditioning of the hybrid fetus in a human host. The nature of the alien physiology is quite different from that of the human host. Through the autopsies that we have done on greys, it has been found that the issue is very often a composite that reflects a blending of animal and plant genetics. Some species have black tissues with green blood and appear to function on a light based nutrient system. Many human hosts have reported mysterious infections, often yeast like in nature. Through analysis of many cases, it has been pretty well established that the aliens often purposefully introduce systemic organisms into the human female in order to acclimate the hybrid fetus to the physiological environment of the alien life to come. These substances are thought to be microfungi and or microviruses. Oh, hell no. Hell to the no. You're going to be, man, we got humans trying to kill us. Now you want the aliens trying to do some virus stuff on us? Come on. Hail to the no. The implantation of these substances The implantation of these substances is thought to be critical for some species in their hybrid breeding program. It is quite apparent that there is no concern for long term effects of the hybrid breeding on the human. Uh huh. Tell me about it. I mean, come on. They apparently make adjustments during the breeding cycle. These adjustments can include substances which physically wear down the human host, as well as manipulation of the various fields inherent with the human body. The question always seems to rise: if these aliens can produce synthetic tissue, why couldn't they just grow a torso or create a synthetic clone to bear the fetus for them? Right on. Amen. Why do they have to use humans for this process? There are two main parts to this answer. One, the first one is that they need the genetic input. The whole reason for the hybridization is to enrich the genetic capability of the organism. For this, they need human genes. Two, the second part of the answer is that they need the effect on the fetus or human emotional and psychic experiences. The hybrid being will develop growing sentience, unlike a synthetic. Okay, true. So they need it to have basically a soul. I mean, let's just keep it real. It has to come from like a spiritual, there has to be some type of spiritual being growing within. Unlike in synthetic, where the sentience does not extend past the physiologically determined by the matrix, the programming is set and must be exposed to these factors. One would then ask why they could not sit around and project psychic energy at a clone using artificial ways, of course, because that's not how it works. The universe is based on life having the duality of female and male. Yeah. I wonder, these aliens, they've been living too long, is what it seems like to me. Meaning their technology has allowed them to live an infinite, I mean, thousands upon thousands of years, right? Some aliens live over 100 years. If you saw the live stream where I was talking about the interview with the Roswell alien Earl, that particular alien was millions of years advanced. Their civilization is beyond these guys, I think. And Earl was saying that they can go from body to body, kind of like a spirit can, embody one body and another body and another body. And this is at will. They can do this at will. So they can leave, their spirit can leave the body and go into another body. So they're not needing to reproduce. Those particular aliens are not needing to reproduce. So the answer is that the emotional component would be missing and the psychic energy not so pure. The hybrid fetus is extracted from the human host about 90 Earth days, and development then continues in a totally alien environment. The whole process causes premature deterioration of the human female host, which simply increases the vulnerability to the alien manipulation due to a weakened condition. During the hybrid breeding process, the body of the human female host will be manipulated. There have been cases where fillings in teeth, which may contain mercury and other metals, have been taken out of the human's mouth in order to seemingly promote the health of the developing fetus. Abductions related to medical anomalies an abductee may experience. Abnormal blood cells. They can experience implants in the eye, skin, nose, and anus. They experience diarrhea, mostly in men, constipation, mostly in women, shoulder pain that comes and goes, lower back pain, 3 vertebrae up from the lower lumbar or pain, in the vertebrae, knee pain in the dip of the knee under the kneecap, constipation, mostly in women, rashes immediately after contact that may be caused by radiation, a lump in the dip of the collarbone at connection to the neck, may cause paralysis or semi-paralysis of the arms, artery in the wrong place, ooh, may indicate a arterial implant, pregnancy connected with an abduction time period, usually a small fetus. A baby may have an unusual appearance. A child who has ESP or is advanced beyond his or her years. An eyelid which may contract and roll toward outwards under stress. Eyes may be able to see through the closed eyelids. Visual marks on the body. Scars or geometric forms visually present on the body. Scars in the back of the legs. For people before 1943, it seems to indicate skin scraping, i.e., cloning. Hear a buzz, beep, or modulated tones in the ear when going to sleep. When they feel a last breath feeling, maybe just a side effect of out of body experience, shaking of the bed, yeah, in conjunction with the limbs of their body floating or rising, yep. But again, this happens spiritually too. It's kind of freaky. Geometric symbols seen in the mind, yep. Tiredness in the morning after a good night's sleep, yep. Feel as though you are worn out, sleep learning, yeah. Out of body experiences, sudden development of ESP, Rhineck enzyme to the brain, new development, extra vertebrae in the neck, egg sized lump on the bottom rib, warts from a geometrical shape after examination appear to be from some instrument, inculcation devices, and the practice of manipulation of the mind. The following material, one's blah, 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 talks about Nevada. Learning, teaching, and assimilation techniques of electronic space societies. Okay, think that's enough for today. We'll save the rest for tomorrow. Hold on, let me see what's going on. 104. Where did we go? Where did we go for? Okay, so we only, oh, you know what? Let me finish it. No, let me finish it. It's only like 3 more pages. And then tomorrow we can get into part 2, the Pulsar Project. Okay, so learning, teaching, and assimilation techniques of electronic space societies. Through the experience of those who have had and are continuing to have various contacts with non human entities, we have learned some data regarding these advanced societies. Overall, life appears to be rather regimented. Social codes are sufficiently advanced beyond those of the human being that they become a part of the existence rather than the subject of existence. In electronic space societies of positive orientation, knowledge and data are generally assimilated under duress, in that training and education are accomplished by forceful means, such as implant technology. Techniques of electronic space societies inculcation, which is to teach or impress by force or frequent repetition, is the usual term used. One of the prime patterns of activity is what is called direct observation. During this process, face to face contact occurs between alien species and a volunteer humanoid for the purpose of exchanging cultural information. Direct observation also appears to include various types of medical analysis. Abductees in this situation are actually volunteers, but inculcation methods block their knowing or awareness of their own participation. Of course, this is not the procedure of some alien races who take abductees against their will, i.e., the Greys. So this is another alien race. Most of the alien races, they don't do what the Greys do. Direct observance operational procedures are as follows. A human target is sensed. The human's ridge response system is examined and checked. The craft is allowed to appear to the human, releasing old implant blocks. The subject is monitored and then picked up when appropriate. Sometimes a targeted human being will be picked up in childhood and taken to an underground facility for crystal implantation. They will be monitored through the growth period. In young adulthood, the human is picked up and then the crystals are removed. And the human, holy crap, I just remembered something. Wow. Okay. So they're picked up and then the crystals are removed, and the human is kind of placed in a reserve for future triggering and employment. The Andreasen affair is an excellent case which features these elements. The inculcation devices. Several kinds of devices have been noted by those who have had contact with various alien species. The inculcation bar. A rectangular box of metal with multicolored lights displaying a sequence of blue, green, blue, and the numerical sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I've seen this somewhere. I think Fringe, if you haven't seen the show Fringe, it has the observers, and then it has an episode talking about the multicolored lights that puts you into an hypnotic state, and you miss time and you don't know where you've been or what you've done in that period of time. The subject lies on his or her back on a metal table directly beneath the bar. At the foot of the table, level with the surface, in a metal console box with cables connected to the table. The attendants are dressed in red jumpsuits, and the room itself is bathed in red light, except when inculcation therapy is in progress. The inculcation monitor, this monitor, when coupled with the data banks in the ship's computers, can be used to implement the enhancement of a being by infusing abilities through the implantation of the data. During this process, it appears as if negative mental states are removed and mental barriers are set aside. The monitor is a modulated uh, catecholine encoded laser beam, which pierces the eyeball of the subject in a Earth nanosecond, which is a 1 billionth of a second. It resonates down compatible optic frequencies, which sets up harmonic vibrations which disseminate the encoding to the proper receptor sites. The catecholine beta lipotropin 4753 is a technical name for the substance or a substance often given to the abductees. It has the effect of removing certain body neuronal blocks. At the same time, gives a boost to the awareness, intelligence level of the abductee. It is a mixture and distillation of a slightly enkephalinic long word simulating adrenocorticotropic hormone in a neuromasticizing neurotransmitting medium, i.e., cerebral cortex rotor rooter. Holy crap. Rapid inculcation processes. In one method, one dons a helmet bearing wires and needles. A crystal cube is put into a niche on top, and a type of strobe light flashes in resonance with the brain waves of the abductee. The abductee's head becomes filled with pictures, which gradually form a pattern of responses. The abductee is given a learned motion pattern response system and may be trained in a brief amount of time to do a complicated task. Sometimes the abductee is hypnotized or made to sleep, and a high-frequency microwave emission is used as a rapid inculcation method. Rapid inculcation processes an ocular wave with which to send encoded data into his or her nerve ridge response system. This data may be triggered later by a prearranged stimulus response signal that will be present in the environment of the abductee. Sometimes the bioenergetic field itself is used as a carrier wave, and the data is encoded in sound code symbols. The gray hybrids or the Regillians and the beetle leucstens, I guess is those from the Betelgeuse constellation or whatever, have an interesting variation on which abductee sits in front of the screen and computer console type and interacts with the image on the holographic display. Notes: the rich response system equals a series of energy focal points formed by the energy streams around the physical body. Ridges can impinge on each other and cause an enduring state. Ridges exist in suspension around the human and are the foundation upon which facsimiles or faxes are built. I'm assuming that's what it means. Faxes is a recording. Yeah, the faxes. A fax is a recording of all perceptions, effort, thought, emotion, experience by the organism during any point in time. It is recorded by the reactive mind. A facsimile can also be considered the physical universe impression on thought, specifically the section of thought which has a physical universe impression with a time tag on it. Reactive mind equals a reactive mind are portions of the mind which works on a simultaneous response, which is not under conscious control, and which exerts force and the power of command over the being's awareness, purposes, thoughts, body, and alteosis. The reactive mind never stops operating. What is thought to be unconsciousness is always conscious. 21st century power biotech. We are leaving the era of expandable resources, like oil-based products. The power of the future is renewable resources like biological engineered products. The Dolce genetic research was originally funded under the cloak of Black Project secrecy, which is billions of dollars. They were interested in the intelligent disposable biology, humanoids, to do the dangerous atomic plutonium propulsors and saucer experiments. They cloned their own little humanoids via a process perfected in a biogenetic research lab center of the world at Los Alamos. Now they have their disposable slave race. Like the Greys, EBEs, the US government clandestinely impregnated human females, then removed the hybrid fetuses, after about 90 days, like the aliens. For more details about the government, about how the government does their abductions, see Volume 2 of this document, called the Pulsar Project. Then accelerate their growth in the lab by biogenetic DNA manipulation. Programming is instilled. They are implanted and controlled at a distance through regular RF radio frequency transmissions. Many humans are also being implanted with brain transceivers. These act as a telepathic channel or channels and telemetric brain manipulation devices. The network net was set up by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Two of the procedures were RHIC, I've heard of this, radio hypnotic intracerebral control, and EDM, also heard of this. It's a real thing. Electronic dissolution of memory. The brain transceiver is inserted into the head through the nose. They learned this from the Greys. These devices are used in the Soviet Union and the United States, as well as Sweden. The Swedish Prime Minister Palm gave the National Swedish Police Board the right in 1973 to insert brain transmitters into the heads of human beings covertly. They also developed the ELF and the EM, which is the EM wave propagation equipment, rays which affect the nerves and can cause nausea, fatigue, irritability, and even death. This is essentially the same as Richard Shaver's cavern Telaug mechanism. This research into biodynamic relationships with organisms, biological plasma, has already produced a ray that can change the genetic structure, heal, or even kill. So they can send, we've already know this. This is science, actually. You can see the papers online. You can look up any of this stuff. waves, microwaves, electromagnetic waves, specific tones, specific frequency, music can destroy your cells or heal your cells. And you have this all over YouTube too. You find thousands upon thousands of videos on these type of tones or frequency music. Okay, so as already produced array, cavern bendment. Okay, warning: manipulation and control, fear, fraud, and favor. The Pentagon, the CIA, the NSA, the DEA, FBI, the NSC, etc., seek to capitalize on the beliefs of the American public. The secret government is getting ready to stage a contact landing with aliens. So basically, an extraterrestrial event. They're preparing us for that. They're staging a contact landing with aliens in the very near future. So that was in 1990, 80s, 90, 2000. I mean, basically, we're there. A few decades later, and we're having hearings, and they're getting us ready. Uh, this way, they can control the release of alien-related propaganda. We will be told of an interstellar conflict, but what looks real may be fake. The Blue Beam Project, I believe, is what he's talking about. What is disinformation? Is your attention being diverted by the strategy of the shadow plan? I believe you already know the answer. Berkeley Los Alamos Labs chosen to explore makeup of human genome. So this is the appendix of the acronyms of the names that they use. AC, alien craft, identified alien craft. I think we've been through this already. Alien craft landing. So these are all the acronyms. And I think that's it for now. So tomorrow we'll get into the Pulsar, this part 2 to this, which is called the Pulsar Project. And I think it gets into the pharmacology of the aliens, what they use to sedate humans and animals, earthly humans and animals. And that'll be another 100 and something pages of alien technology that humans have acquired over the last, since the 1920s, probably 1930s, definitely 1940s, during World War II, after World War II, with the Nazis, etc. And I guess the movie They Live is trying to tell us something, huh? They live. If you want to support, make sure you like, subscribe, share. Tell your friends about this weird channel. Talks about extraterrestrials and government conspiracies. If you want to support monetarily, you can check out the links in the description. See you tomorrow. Have a good night. Have some sweet dreams. Don't get abducted. Bye.